Chapter 2b. "Where do you come from?" said the Red Queen to Alice. "And where are you going? Look up, speak nicely, don't twiddle your fingers all the time." Alice attended to all these directions and explained as well as she could that she had lost her way. "I don't know what you mean by your way," said the Queen. "All ways here belong to me. But why did you come out here at all?" she added. "Curtsy while you're thinking. It saves time." Alice wondered a little at this, but she was too much in awe of the Queen to disbelieve it. "I'll try it when I go home," she thought to herself. "Next time I'm a little late for dinner." "It's time for you to answer now," the Queen said, looking at her watch. "Open your mouth a little wider when you speak, and always say, 'Yes, Your Majesty.'" "I only wanted to see what the garden was like, Your Majesty." "That's right," said the Queen, putting her on the head, which Alice didn't like at all. "Though when you're in the garden, when you say garden, now I've seen gardens compared with which this would be a wilderness." Alice didn't dare argue the point, but went on. "And I thought I'd try and find my way up to the top of the hill." "When you say hill," the Queen interrupted, "I could show you hills in comparison with which you'd call that a valley." "No, I shouldn't," said Alice, surprised into contradicting her at last. "A hill can't be a valley, you know. That would be nonsense." The Red Queen shook her head. "You may call it nonsense if you like," she said, "but I've heard nonsense compared with which that would be as sensible as a dictionary." Alice curtsied again, and she was afraid from the Queen's tone that she was a little offended, and they walked on in silence till they got to the top of the hill. For some minutes Alice stood without speaking, looking out in all directions over the country. And a most curious country it was. There was a number of tiny little brooks running straight across it from side to side, and the ground between was divided up into squares by a number of little green hedges that reached from brook to brook. "I declare, it's marked out just like a large chessboard," Alice said at last. "There ought to be some men moving about somewhere." "And so there are," she added in a tone of delight, and her heart began to beat quick with excitement as she went on. "It's a great, huge game of chess that's being played all over the world. If this is the world at all, you know. Oh, what fun it is! Oh, how I wish I were one of them. I wouldn't mind being a pawn if I might only join, though of course I should like to be the Queen best." She glanced rather shyly at the real Queen as she said this, but her companion only smiled pleasantly and said, "That's easily managed. You can be the White Queen's pawn, if you like, as Lily's too young to play. And you're in the second square to begin with. And when you get to the 8th square, you'll be a queen." Just at this moment, somehow or another, they began to run. Alice never could quite make it out, in thinking it over afterwards, how it was that they began. All she remembers is that they were running hand in hand, and the Queen went so fast that it was all she could do to keep up with her. And still the Queen kept crying, "Faster, faster!" But Alice felt she could not go faster, though she had not a breath left to say so. The most curious part of the thing was that the trees and the other things round them never changed their places at all. However fast they went, they never seemed to pass anything. "I wonder if all the things move along with us," thought poor puzzled Alice, and the Queen seemed to guess her thoughts, for she cried, "Faster, don't try to talk." Not that Alice had any idea of doing that. She felt as if she would never be able to talk again. She was getting so much out of breath, and still the Queen cried, "Faster, faster," and dragged her along. "Are we nearly there?" Alice managed to pant out at last. "Nearly there?" the Queen repeated. "Why, we passed it 10 minutes ago. Faster!" And they ran on for a time in silence, with the wind whistling in Alice's ears and almost blowing her hair off her head, she fancied. "Now, now," cried the Queen. "Faster, faster!" And they went so fast that at last they seemed to skim through the air, hardly touching the ground with their feet, till suddenly, just as Alice was getting quite exhausted, they stopped, and she found herself sitting on the ground, breathless and giddy. The Queen propped her up against a tree and said kindly, "You may rest a little now." Alice looked round in great surprise. "Why, I do believe we've been under this tree the whole time. Everything's just as it was." "Of course it is," said the Queen. "What would you have it?" "Well, in our country," said Alice, still panting a little, "you generally get to somewhere else if you ran very fast for a long time, as we've been doing." "A slow sort of country," said the Queen. "Now here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that." "Oh, I'd rather not, please," said Alice. "I'm quite content to stay here. Only I am so hot and thirsty." "I know what you'd like," the Queen said good-naturedly, taking a little box out of her pocket. "Have a biscuit." Alice thought it would not be civil to say no, though it wasn't at all what she wanted. She took it and ate it as well as she could, and it was very dry, and she thought she had never been nearly so choked in all of her life. "While you're refreshing yourself," said the Queen, "I'll just take the measurements." And she took a ribbon out of her pocket, marked in inches, and began measuring the ground and sticking little pegs in here and there. "At the end of 2 yards," she said, putting in a peg to mark the distance, "I shall give you your directions. Have another biscuit." "No, thank you," said Alice. "One's quite enough." "Thirst quenched, then, I hope," said the Queen. Alice did not know what to say to this, but luckily the Queen did not wait for an answer, but went on. "At the end of 3 yards I shall repeat them, for fear of you forgetting them, and at the end of 4 I shall say goodbye, and at the end of 5 I shall go." Then she had got all the pegs in by this time, and Alice looked on with great interest as she returned to the tree and then began slowly walking down the road. At the first 2-yard peg, she faced round and said, "A pawn goes 2 squares in its first move, you know, so you'll go very quickly through the 3rd square, by railway, I should think, and you'll find yourself in the 4th square in no time. Well, that square belongs to Tweedledum and Tweedledee. The 5th is mostly water. The 6th belongs to Humpty Dumpty, but you make no remark." I didn't know I had to make one just then," Alice faltered out. "You should have said, 'It's extremely kind of you to tell me all of this.' However, we'll suppose it's said. The 7th square is all forest. However, one of the knights will show you the way. And the 8th square we shall be queens together. And it's all feasting and fun." Alice got up and curtsied and sat down again. At the next peg the Queen turned again, and this time she said, "Speak in French when you can think of it. The English when you can't think of the English for a thing. And turn out your toes as you walk, and remember who you are." She did not wait for Alice to curtsy this time, but walked on quickly to the next peg, where she turned for a moment to say, "Goodbye," and then hurried on to the last. How it happened, Alice never knew, but exactly as she came to the last peg, she was gone. Whether she vanished into the air or whether she ran quickly into the wood, and she can run very fast, thought Alice. There was no way of guessing, but she was gone, and Alice began to remember that she was a pawn, and that it would soon be time for her to move.